All right, guys, another episode, Everything Money. We have a special local guest, Tony Lahood from Lahood. He's a friend of a friend. I met him years ago involving a car deal. If you remember the Defender 90 that I had. Oh. But Tony was on the Shark Tank with two of his buddies doing Saucemoto. What season? Season 10 or 11?
Yeah, season 10, I think episode 21 or 22, something like
was
that.
it? I thought it was, okay, either way. So Saucemoto, this is done very well. He got a deal with Kevin O'Leary. Did not close the deal, but we're here to talk about the inner workings of Shark. I love Shark Tank. I'm on a Shark Tank binge.
Show.
In fact, my fiance the other day said, do we have to watch Shark Tank again? And I was like, fine, we'll watch something else. I love Shark Tank because I do think, one, it's a great learning experience for a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people pitch deals to me all the time and they don't realize how dumb their deals are. They have a brilliant idea and they come in with some ridiculous offer. So let's start from the beginning. First off, in this episode, you talked about after Barbara Corcoran said you were not a very excited person, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you said you guys were on a road trip. You had got a brand new car and you guys had spilled some sauce. Was that a true story? Or was that kind of like
that's an absolutely true story.
Somebody spilled the sauce in your car, your new car.
Basically, we were driving to Detroit, I think, or something like that. And my buddy Will was sitting next to me. We all got fast food. You know, it's a road trip. Everyone's having a good time. And he's holding the sauce in one hand, trying to dunk and all this stuff. And, you know, sauce spills everywhere. So the entire rest of the drive, we're sitting there going, this shouldn't be an issue. Like, this shouldn't be a thing. And this was, I don't know, at this point, like 15, 16 years ago.
Okay.
So we kind of started thinking, all right, how do we fix this? How do we make it better? How do we whatever? And we had a bunch of random ideas. Kind of fell by the wayside for a while until Will, same buddy, got a 3D printer. And he's like, no, we're fixing this now. So he took one of the ideas we kind of had on the road trip, printed it, and put it in his vent. All of a sudden, it was amazing, first of all, but everybody that got in his car was like, all right,
this is awesome.
I need this.
Yeah.
Can I have this one? Can you get me one? Whatever. And we're like, maybe there's something kind of here.
And how many years after was it that he got the 3D printer and started doing that?
So it's kind of funny. Will got the 3D printer because on one of my birthdays, we went down to Columbus. I own this limo bus, this Sprinter limo thing. Went down to Columbus and everyone was getting hammered. The driver who we took down with us decided to start drinking with us.
Oh my God.
So we hired a valet from the hotel.
Get out of here.
I swear. We're like, the valet from the hotel, we're like, do you want to make a couple $100 tonight? He drove us around in the Sprinter, but Will had his laptop in there. Then the valet stole Will's laptop.
What?
And Will was like, all right. So we filed an insurance claim because it was like a nice, full-blown MacBook.
Yeah.
And he, bought a cheaper laptop and bought a 3D printer.
Okay.
And this was maybe 5-6 years after we had that initial conversation. First thing he printed and designed was the Saucemoto. So then
it's amazing.
It was the weirdest thing, but kind of all worked out. But then once everyone wanted it, we were like, all right, we got to do something with this.
So I remember on the episode, you had said you had sold 12,000 units at that point. Like they said to you, how many units? You're like, I don't know, 12,000. So from the time, then when you guys decided we're going to make a product out of this, did you guys 3D print every single one of them or did you guys outsource that?
No. So basically what happened was, and just to be clear, we can only talk about certain things with Shark Tank, just so you guys
With
know.
what? Oh, really?
Shark Tank, yeah, we are under, there's certain things we can talk about, certain things we can't. There's NDAs, but I'll try to give you guys as much detail as possible. So when we went on Shark Tank, it was actually about little over a year before the episode aired. And we had just launched. So we launched on Kickstarter because we're like, this would be fun to see what it would do. Honestly, initially, we thought we were just going to do this Kickstarter run and just have fun with it and, make a viral video and all this kind of stuff. And then we'll just, go from there. Kickstarter happened. Shark Tank called. We tossed it back and forth. And then, we've decided to kind of go through the process at that point.
Shark Tank called you.
So certain products, Shark Tank will reach out.
Gotcha.
Not all products, not everything, but they'll reach out. You still got to go through the process.
Of course.
But they'll kind of tell you, hey, if you go through, we'd be interested in talking to you a little bit more. But when we filmed, we had, maybe a month earlier, had just received our initial shipment from Kickstarter. So all our sales were based on...
How much did you raise on Kickstarter?
I want to say it was right around $70,000.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Which wasn't too bad for an initial run. It was kind of weird because we actually had millions and millions of views outside of Kickstarter. like from Cheddar, and we got the video got cut up by all these.
Didn't you get your
44
video
million.
had 44 million? Yeah.
Yeah, well, so what that was is like a lot of people ask us about that because they're like, your video didn't have, because on YouTube it doesn't show that many.
Yeah.
What that was based on, and this is where Shark Tank the editing process in Shark Tank takes place. So our video got cut up, and basically like Delish posted it, Cheddar posted it, like all these various social media channels took our cut up video and reposted. So that's
what
where,
they're including.
That's where that kind of 44 million views comes from.
You spent $4,000 on that?
Yeah,
That's awesome.
We directed the whole thing, and we were kind of like we were helping out with everything because we didn't want to spend a fortune. We didn't know where things were going to go, so we were like, all right, we'll just help out with everything. We'll make it fun.
Yeah.
So that's where the 44 million views came from. But then when you're on the show, you're kind of trying to explain everything, and I don't know, it's like 5 people shouting at you. But, so that's where kind of we got the numbers from. But the sales that we were presenting, and this is where we had an issue with the valuation, because we're like, we don't know.
We don't know what our valuation is.
This is based on a Kickstarter campaign.
Do they give you any guidance? Do they tell you like, hey, like, so what can you tell us about what Shark Tank has like told you ahead of time? Like, what do they sit there and say to you ahead of time? Like, hey, do they give you any guidance saying, here's what you need to come in with and all that stuff? Oh boy.
So, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So there's, like I said, we still had the application process. We still had to go through, the hoops to get on the show.
Mm-hmm. What were those hoops?
I mean, you just have to submit a video. They want to make sure that you are good on camera.
Yeah, you gotta be entertaining.
Well, I've seen some duds on camera.
I hate being on
too.
camera. Okay. And that's probably why Barbara mentioned that I didn't want to be there. Like
you're behind the scenes guy.
I have no interest in, being on camera or becoming whatever. So she was half right.
Your partners were into it.
Yeah, she was half right by saying, you seem like you don't want to be here. I'm not going to lie about that. But I'm usually a pretty even-keeled guy anyway, so it wasn't like, but they want you to pop.
Yeah,
and, it makes sense because it's entertainment. It's not just deal-making. If it was just deal-making, it would be done in a boardroom or, somebody's office or whatever.
And by the way, for everybody watching, it was season 10, episode 22 officially. That way you can go watch it. Definitely pull it up. But, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's the process is kind of like I don't know how to put it, the video that you kind of send in, which I think a lot of people do. I think I still think they get hundreds of thousands of videos every year.
Oh, geez.
Like applications. And then you kind of go to LA and you film, and the filming is very different than.
Well, even before you go to LA, like then they call you and say, hey, we got your video. Yeah. We like it. We want you to be on the episode, but they don't guarantee you're going to be on TV though, right? No.
So they film a little bit more than they need to per. I guess they set it up per episode. I'm not sure exactly on the semantics of how they...
Did you meet other people when you get to LA?
Yeah, you meet some of the other people. I don't think, you don't get to meet everybody because they kind of film in sections. But basically the process is pretty rigorous. Like they kind of show you some of the things that you're going to deal with and kind of put you through some of the ropes just so you're well-versed enough to kind of walk down the...
Like what?
Walk down the tank and, what your pitch is going to be and where, like... kind of stage presence stuff, not really anything.
But you don't
else.
see any of the sharks before you walk that door.
No, they don't know anything about you. You don't know anything about them. I will say that there's been reports, and I'm not going to say that it's real or not, but they do have headsets in. So I'm sure the producers are kind of giving them some information. But for the most part, it's a real pitch. And it lasts way longer than
they
what
say.
you see on
I heard
TV.
it's a couple of. It could
So
be a couple of hours.
they said the fastest ones are like 30 minutes. The longest ones are like 2 hours.
Wow.
How long was yours?
You know what? It's all a big blur, but I feel like it was right around an hour, maybe.
Now, do they ever do cuts and say, "Hey, hang on a second"?
No,
or is
it's all
straight through?
It's just straight through.
Pretty good editing,
and it's pretty crazy that beyond just the editing. I mean, it's wild in there. Like it really is the Shark Tank. Like you are in this room with 5 people. There's 3 of us. So all 3 of us are answering separate questions at the same time.
Oh, come on.
So it feels like it's very calm when you're watching it on TV.
So Barbara could be asking you a question, and Mark Cuban could be asking you a question, and Robert could be asking you.
And I think they did a live version not that long ago.
Oh, I don't remember.
I haven't had a chance to watch it. My business partner Mike said it was the closest thing to the actual experience because everyone wants to know what they want to know.
Yeah.
And they're all asking questions kind of somewhat out of turn, I would say.
Right.
But, respectfully, they're not screaming at you. They're just trying to get the information they want. So then you kind of process whatever questions are fired at you or even remotely around you, and you try not to get in the way of the other people. But then it starts to calm down as people kind of rein in the overall questions, and you kind of, fall into some rhythm with the sharks, I would say.
Does the show give you any guide? Because I see some valuations that are just stupid.
Yeah.
Do they give you any guidance?
No.
I think that's part of the fun.
So it's yours.
I think it's part of the fun of the show is they want to sit there and say, look stupid up there or look really good up there. Like I watched the episode the other day and everybody was like, you came in reasonable. And the lady's like, yeah, because I want a deal. And I was like,
yeah.
And it's funny because Lisa was like, my fiance was like, I don't like her product. I'm like, you don't like the fact that she has $800,000 in sales? Like, I was just like, and then I said, you know what? She's the kind of person I want to deal with because she didn't come in with some egregious ask.
Yeah, and exactly. So when we did our evaluation, again, we had really no idea. So we were working off Kickstarter numbers, and we're working on projected interest, and who knows what it's going to take to kind of go from A to B.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really difficult with a new product that doesn't even have a product category.
Right.
So if we were redesigning the cup, right? You can kind of project like, okay, if I make the cup this much better and I price it similarly to everybody else, I can acquire this much market share.
I've never seen anything like this.
That was, and it's still to this day, like we struggle to find our category. Like it's kind of kitschy. It's kind of a gag gift that turns into a real product that you use.
Yeah.
It's kind of
my fiance hates kitschy. She was like, Paul, get one of these for me. I was like, I'm not going to ask him for one. I'm like, just order you one. She's like, no, I'm sure he'll bring one in. I'm like, then I'll grab it for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. So most people end up with these as gifts.
Yeah.
And then once they end up with them as gifts, they end up giving them as gifts. And then it just turns into a cycle because they actually use them. So it's like kind of a thinking of you. That's the way I prefer to think of it, is instead of a gag gift, it's a thinking of you gift. So someone who likes chicken nuggets, someone who likes French fries, sauce, whatever it is.
Right.
It's not like, oh, I'm going to get them this gag gift. Like, it's like, I thought of you and this product.
What were the chicken nuggets you brought? Because everybody was like, these chicken nuggets are good.
Yeah, they were actually just like Tyson.
I was going to say, they look like generic chicken nuggets. Everyone's like, these chicken nuggets are good. Like everybody was commenting on chicken nuggets. Did you watch it? When did you watch it?
I saw you a long time ago. Didn't know it was you, obviously. And then I watched it again this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting because like they cook the food for us and then just
really,
like they have a small kitchen and they just ask like, hey, whatever. Put in the microwave.
Something funny though, about a year ago, my girlfriend's brothers, they work in close buildings and they go to lunch over in like the Brooklyn area, and they were telling me about this product a year ago.
So it's funny, the other day I said to him, like, he's like, well, what product is this? I go, Saucemoto. He's like, what's that? I told him, he's like,
I Googled it. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is what they, and they're like, we love this product. I had no idea that it was a Cleveland-based company.
It's a really weird thing because people either love it or hate it initially. And then once they have it.
Who hates this?
There's always people.
Go F yourself,
no matter
people.
what, if you're on social media, there's always going to be people.
You have a miserable life.
But there's always people, that are like, I don't eat in my car, or fast food's horrible for you.
20% of meals happen in cars in the United States.
Where's that data from? I like what Cuban said. When Cuban came out and said, like, I said, I probably do a third of my meal, 30%.
He said 30%.
So it's a Stanford study that we picked up on when we were doing research for the thing, and we were like, holy crap.
I eat in my car a lot.
And the thing is, I do too. And when you really start to think about it, so I think the pandemic may have changed some things, but it may have accelerated it because we got busier during that period. Yeah. But when you think about it, if you're on the go, if you're somebody who's constantly running around, or a mom, or whatever it is, realtors, I mean, 1 million people are just in their car all the time, right?
Yeah.
So, or if you want to get out of the office for lunch,
right? Sometimes
you don't want to go into the place that you want to eat. You just kind of sit in the car.
That's literally what they would do. They would go get their food. They would go back to work, sit in the parking lot, and put this in the
exactly. And then they dip their food.
Exactly.
So but some people just don't. I think we learned very, very quickly. At the end of the day, you're just not going to get everyone to like your product.
Of course not.
You have to be okay with people criticizing.
Exactly.
And this one kind of
like
created
our channel.
Yeah. And this one created polar reactions too.
Polar?
Yeah. Like so, some people were like, "This is the greatest invention ever to come." Yeah. Hallelujah. And other people were like, this is what America's come to, like this is a product that we're putting out.
By the way, on Amazon, I looked at the other day, you have 20,000 reviews.
Yeah.
So how many units have you sold this since day one?
So I will say this, we don't publicly talk about any sales data. I mean, just like a company policy we agreed on a long time ago.
Okay.
Just,
I'm fine with that, yes.
I will say that online, it's kind of funny because whenever we read, so if you type in Saucemoto, like one of the first things that comes up to autofill would be net worth. And it's hilarious seeing this stuff. So we've seen online between $400,000 in sales and $400 million in sales. And that is the spread on our sales in the online world of what people
So
have
it's
said
funny.
that we've done.
My fiance and I, we always have this discussion because she'll be like, she'll see something like, oh, what's that company worth? What's that person worth? I'm like, Lisa, it's privately held. They're like, so what? You can Google it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
I learned never to believe.
Oh, you can't ever
any
believe
of that
I learned that 20 years ago. I'm like, I remember looking at like Celebrity Net Worth came out. I'm like, how do they factor this stuff in? But I mean, listen, I can extrapolate things out based on reviews, like somewhat, because we have 20,000 reviews. 10% of your people aren't reviewing. It's way lower percentage. So I look at that going, hey, good for you guys. So another random thing. So Cuban said, so you do bars, and he said, has he ever been to any of your bars?
I don't think he's ever.
I didn't think so either.
We've had a lot of random, basketball, football, whatever players, some celebrities here and there, but I don't remember ever seeing Cuban. But you never know.
I'm sure if Cuban was in your bar, you would have heard about it.
I'm sure I would have heard about it on some level. We always get random.
But he used to own a bar, so that's why I
he
think
started
Cuban's
in the bar business.
So that's why he's big on it. Because you saw his reaction. He's like, "Oh, you're in the bar business." He was like really excited about that.
And the bar business is where I started, so it was I've always loved that business.
So afterwards, you did it. So in the thing, you got to deal with Kevin.
Yeah.
How long did it take for the first offer to actually? Did they all leave and then Kevin made an offer?
So
I forget.
We actually had more offers.
They had 3 offers. Robert made an offer.
We had, I think we had 4 offers.
Oh wow!
Well, no, maybe just 3. I can't remember.
Robert wanted 50%.
So Robert made a couple of offers. What's her name?
Barbara or Lori?
Lori made
I thought Lori
I
was
thought
the right
Lori was
one.
the perfect person for this.
So it's kind of weird because we actually started at with Kevin, and what they didn't show is kind of he was making offers along the way, and we were just kind of like, I want to say I felt dismissive almost. Like it was polite, but it was dismissive. I was like, all right, okay, get out of here. We're not gonna.
Oh, so you were dismissing him? You felt?
I mean, I felt in the moment that there was some, dismissiveness from our group because it was just like these offers that were more just not the greatest, right? And we already came in with a super low evaluation, like you were saying about evaluations. No one's guiding you. No one's telling you, hey, come in with this. It's what you think is reasonable. We could have came in and said, hey, we want $1 million for 5%. Right, and been laughed out of the room because
you'd never gotten a deal there to let you out there.
Or we could have came in and said we want $10,000 for 50%, and somebody would have just been like, okay, if that's really what you want.
Did you go in there like actually wanting a deal?
Yeah, I mean,
I know there's people that go in there not wanting a deal.
Yeah, those bothered me. I like that Cuban calls people out.
Yeah.
No.
Did you have a person in mind that you were like, this is kind of who I want?
And the weird thing is so there's all these celebrity guest judges, and you don't really know.
You don't know who's going to be in there.
You don't know who your people are going to be till you know who your people are going to be, right?
Yeah.
But we definitely wanted a deal. I mean, so there's two factors to kind of getting a deal there. One, okay, you get a deal, whatever. That's great for publicity. That's great for whatever.
Of course.
You get the money, which $45,000. I'll put it this way, we didn't really need the money. It wasn't about, hey, we need a $45,000 investment to kind of make this work, right? That wasn't necessarily the case, but it would have, obviously any amount of money when you're starting up is great. But to be in business with someone, and I mean, I'm sure you guys, I've only seen a little bit of your podcast, but connections are business. That's it. That's all it is, right? If you know someone who can get you to that next level, what's the money worth? If he would have said, I'll give you $1
you'd
for
still
25%, as long as
I agree.
As long as there's an equitable distribution of, what's happening. What do you, if this
I think what bothers me about Shark Tank,
here,
so many people come on there and they want this. It does bother me. It's funny. It's been happening a lot lately. People come in and say, we raised a round at blah, blah, blah. And I hate that too. And they're like, because they're going to be like, well, I can't go lower than my other investors. I'm a shark.
Yeah.
You will go lower than the other investors because I'm a shark and you have a commercial. This is ridiculous.
And the thing is, I don't think it's just about sharks. I think in general, if you know someone who is in the business and understands this realm, that life experience, that the connections they bring to the table, the world of knowledge that they bring, okay, the money is important,
right?
And it's important to grow, and you don't ever want to give up too much equity in a project, but what's the old saying? I'd rather have a small percentage of something huge than a whole percentage of something really small, And
I think that's what, to me, when I watch the show, by the way, it's very common. I used to get pitched all the times for deals, and I never invested in a single one, and I never saw any of the ones that I didn't invest in ever take off. And I look at it going, they come in with two. Like I remember once two ladies coming to me and saying, "Paul, we want to do like senior living."
Yeah.
I said, "Okay," and then the one made a specific point. But whatever property we buy, I'm the real estate agent on and I get paid. I immediately went, I'm out. In my head, I was just like, you were more worried about yourself
than the whole business.
Than me. And then the other woman said, well, I've got a partner too, so I want to split it up 4 ways. I go, well, I've got 3 partners you guys don't know, so we're doing 7. I was 100% of the money, and then it was 3 of us. And the one said, I want the real estate commission. The other one said, I have a partner, so we need to do it 4 ways. And I was like, well, I have 3 other partners. Do we do it 7 ways? It's like, well, that's not fair. I'm like, okay. So I look at it going, by the way, their business idea was a great idea.
Yeah.
But I look at it going, you fucked up by coming in too greedy because I'm the one with the check. Like, I'm going to make this possible. Guess what? They did not do a deal after that.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, there's like linchpin theory, basically like, hey, you have the greatest idea. You have the ability to kind of do it, but there's this one piece that you need that I have. Now, there's plenty of people with money that, might make it work. And there's probably a reason they struck out after the fact anyways, because, if you're a seasoned investor in any way, you start to sense greed. You start to see, hey, this person, they're greedy in this way. They're going to try to nickel and dime this, or they're not going to move it forward. And I think it's more a sense of how they're going to treat you and the business as a whole in the future. Because if they're trying to, again, squeeze every little penny out of whatever for themselves, then they're probably going to treat the business as some kind of personal piggy bank in the future.
So what I said to the person, I said to the person who asked for the extra partner, later on they said, well, why don't we go to the deal? I said, that other person you're with, they were more concerned about their commission in meeting one, that in the future, if something goes bad with a deal, they get to walk away because they got checks from me. And I'm like, that's going to be a problem for me. Like, to me, that was the indication of they care about only and by the way, she was like, well, I have my real estate license. I'm like, well, I have a real estate brokerage, essentially. Here's my partner. Like, I remember and that's the thing I want everybody to remember. Like, when you're going to ask somebody for money, they're the one in charge. Like, the one who writes the check, until you get, I have a few businesses where my partners are giving me all my money back and then some. They get a lot more latitude than the business partners of mine who have not given my money back. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, like if the money's still on the table, then there's some form of control that you're kind of, and that's why sometimes don't take an investment. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you want that type of control over your business, grow your business organically or find a way to kind of put the money in yourself and control your own destiny. And then when you have that power where you're like, hey, this is a thriving or growing or successful business, now you can be a little bit more in demand of the deal that you're structuring. But if you don't have something and you need that something and you don't have anything else without that something, then you don't really get to be in control of the deal. And that's just my opinion. Like, you're kind of you're not in the driver's seat.
It's a very common opinion from people who actually write checks. Yeah, that's the thing. And people remember, it's like they don't realize, like, hey, I love when sharks will say, you want 200,000 for 2%. I'm not getting out of bed for 2%. Yeah, and somebody might sit there and say, well, it's 2. It's like, listen, if I'm a shark and I have 50% of a business and 2% of a business. I'm going to be like, which one am I going to spend my time working on today? Every dollar I make this other business, I get 50% off. Every dollar I make this one, I get 2% of. Just do the math. Which one am I going to go work on?
Right. And that's kind of the way it works. You got to give enough to make someone excited enough to get out of bed and motivate them to do whatever work, to make the calls, to kind of push forward. Otherwise, okay, I'm a passive investor at 2%. It might still be a great deal, but you're super passive, right? You're not going to sit there and dial for dollars for them. You're just, I got, if you make money, I make money. If you don't make money, okay, I lost, $100,000 or whatever it is, right? If you want someone to be invested, you got to give them enough of a stake to kind of do it. But everyone's deal structure aligns differently. I don't know. I mean, every business is different as well.
But like I said, like you said, you're right. Everybody's different. But whenever I see somebody I always tell people, the joke I always get, Paul, if I had your money, I always go, you'd be broke because you'd fall for all the things you shouldn't fall for. Yeah. And it's funny, Mary, who works for me upstairs, she always says to me, it's like the biggest thing that blew my mind when I started working for you was how many people ask you for money. She's like, I was like, I'm immune to it now. But she was like, it just blew my mind. Like, literally, people would come to me saying, hey, can I talk to Paul about this? And I'm just like, wow. It's like, and I don't mean it to be a dick. I just mean it like,
no, I mean, I
know you don't look at it as me, but I'm just saying to the viewers out there, it's like, listen, I know I come across if you watch our episodes, I come across a little,
Brash.
but it's the reason being is that if you get, it's like, you know what it's like? I imagine it's like the hot chick who goes to the bar and every single guy is like, hey, babe, like at some point she's just like, listen, really?
So you're the hot chick?
I'm the hot chick. I have the money.
Just making sure
as
I
I tell my fiance, I
glad
was
you
like,
said it.
the guy with money is like the chick who's very attractive. It's no different. It's just, and so
it's a different set of
I just get hit up
circumstances,
so much that's kind of like when somebody tells me, hey, Paul, I got a great deal for you. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? But when I first started out, it was like, oh yeah, let's hear it. Now it's just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, you start to kind of get cynical. And
of course.
One of the ways that I kind of evaluate how I'm going to work with someone, or if I'm going to kind of put any time or energy towards it, is I will be the most negative, horrible like they'll call me like Debbie Downer. They'll be like, you're shitting on our dreams.
You have to start though.
But the thing is, those people that I talk to in that way, and whether they're asking me for just advice, money, whatever, it doesn't matter. The people I talk to in that way tend to come off better at the end of it, because I want to point out all your weaknesses so you can cover it. Yeah. Like if you're not thinking, when people start businesses, they always see the pie in the sky, whatever, right? They see, oh, look, I could make $1 million doing this one thing, and then, yada, yada. And I'm like, all right, but what about this? What about this? What about this? How are you going to overcome that? What are you going to do here? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will get angry about it. They'll be like, why are you shitting on my dreams? I'm like, I'm not shitting on your dreams.
Being realistic.
I mean, you want to do this. Hey, more power to you. I want you to do this. Just think about these things before you do it, because people just jump into things and get all excited, right?
They only look at the pros.
And when you get seasoned over time, you have to balance it, obviously, because if otherwise you'll never do a deal. You'll just always look at the negatives. But you have to balance looking at the pros and the cons. And a lot of young business people, they see these, YouTube videos, or they see the Instagram guys like, oh, here's how you make $50K a month doing this. It's like,
those are all lies.
First of all, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
Number one. Number two, even if you did get to that level, here's what you're going to go through to get to that level. Right. It's not going to be, I just turned on this thing
and it just started.
Well, look at this channel. Look at this channel. This channel started as a podcast a few years ago, where a successful week was 500 views. And now we have 185. We have, millions of people who view us every single month. And people see that, they go, that's incredible. I'm like, yeah, but you don't remember when we were literally 87 subscribers and we had this setup, and people, we literally would ask friends like, hey, we have a live stream. Can you just show up? So it increased our numbers to 7 versus 5.
Whatever, And the grind is like to me, it's the funnest part. And that's why I think I'm a serial entrepreneur. It's just like, I have to find that next high of just like, I don't care. I don't mind it being nothing right now. It doesn't bother me. I like that feeling. And I think that's where successful people that's the difference between, people that aren't successful and people that are successful is, you had to enjoy that portion of time. It's better now, it's funner now, but you're like, okay, how do I get it there? How do I get it from 7
Well, it's
to
also
12
fun to look
to
back
20?
at it.
Yeah. Maybe I romanticize it, but it's fun to get it from, like I said,
well, it's also easier when we have other successful. Well, you have other successful businesses. I do too. It's a lot easier when
does become easier.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I don't mind putting. Like I always tell people, this whole setup and this whole channel, I spent $250,000 on it before I even saw $1 of revenue. Yeah. And I remember my dad and my brother. My dad was like, "You really spent $250?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "That's a waste of money." And then literally 6 months later, he was like, "Thank God you didn't listen to me." And my brother was just like, "Hey, if you believe in it, you believe in it," because we're partners. So it's funny. You know how I weed people out? I give them a task.
Oh yeah, just tell them to go do.
Go do this for me.
Yeah.
90% of them just fall to the wayside immediately.
So going back to what you said about putting the money in before you even knew what it was going to be. I mean, if I had like a tombstone quote that I could say, "Hey, when I die, put this on my put this on my grave," or whatever. It's to start a business, you have to be smart enough to pull it off and stupid enough to try.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's like my favorite thing that I've ever kind of uttered out of my mouth, because if you start a business, whatever it is, this podcast, real estate, it doesn't matter, right? The odds are always stacked way against you. Like I'm sure people said, do you know how many podcasts are out there?
Of course.
How many YouTube channels are out there spouting the same nonsense that you are? Yep. And, people always like someone like me would give you that negative feedback.
Thanks,
right?
Dick.
And I'd be like, what are you talking about? You're going to lose your freaking shirt. How are you going to get subscribers? How are you going to, whatever. But the whole point is, if you're stupid enough to try it and smart enough to pull it off, like stupid enough to go against
I'll
these
say
odds,
stubborn enough. Because it's not stupid. It's
not
stubborn
stupid.
enough. It's like, because you're like, because guess what?
I guess you're right.
You
You're
were right.
stubborn than stupid.
Yeah, because
I
you're
guess.
right. That like when we first did the podcast, I remember one guy going, well, that's the big thing now. And I was like so irritated with that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not some guy who just wants, but I was stubborn enough to say, no, we are different. And we still believe, if we look at it like value, like one of my big pictures in the video is like, we're real value investors. We don't just say we are, we do what we are. You know what I mean? So it's
But
stubborn.
statistically,
it's going to be
if
a
you
cost
looked
of
at
failure.
statistics and you were like, I want to whatever invest in
terrible.
this, you'd be like, this is stupid,
Yeah.
right? You're like, I'm not going to do this. But that mentality of like, hey, I'm going to do this, and I have the intelligence, and maybe not even the intelligence, just the work ethic and the, whatever perseverance to push it to that next level. That's, again, kind of the difference between successful and not successful. And a lot of people always look at the stupid part and don't look at the intelligence part. They'll go to work for somebody, and there's nothing wrong with that. 9 to 5 jobs are great. There's people that make a bunch of money. They have secure livings. They get to have a whole life.
Even if you don't make it,
early on in their life,
Yeah,
like they get to
exactly.
enjoy things.
Exactly.
Unlike us, who probably
How old are you?
38 now.
Okay.
But like I worked my 20s off. I mean, I partied. I did. I had fun once I started to kind of.
You own a bar.
Yeah, but I mean, I worked like
I know.
crazy, like 100-hour weeks, and sometimes I still do. I fall back into that like addiction where it's like, all right, I'm gonna work. Like, what are you gonna do? Go out? No, I'm working. That's it. That's all I'm gonna do right now. But you have to be stubborn, and you have to be kind of stupid, not stupid, not intelligent stupid. Just kind of like, I'm gonna look at these odds and be like, yeah, I can overcome that. I can figure it out, and then just smart enough to kind of actually pull it off.
Yeah. So, we've talked a lot about, philosophy on that stuff. And, like when we started the channel, January 1st, 2020, we had 87 subscribers. September 10th, 2020, we hit our 1,000. October 15th, we hit 2,000.
Yeah.
But from September of 18 to November of 20, I burned through $250,000 and we finally got our first dollar revenue. And, I say it out there because we have 185,000 subscribers now. And the thing that I like about it is it was worth it to me. And I kept saying, so our old host, Seth, I used to always say to him, I remember, I'll be honest, we had meetings here where he would sit there literally crying, going, what are we doing? We have 17 views on our video. And I'm like, I'd always say this, I don't know what it's going to be, but it will be something. I know something's going to break for us. And one of the guys who worked for us said, Paul, we got to go on YouTube. This whole podcast thing, we got to go on YouTube because it's built for people learning. And we just have to learn the algorithm and do that. I was just like, okay, let's do it. And sure enough, once we started doing YouTube, it was like, okay. So I always say that to say, like, I always tell people, I have that stubbornness to keep going.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's going to work. We have another startup. Our only business is losing money. It's our only startup. And it's funny. I talked to Tim. I go, I'm just being a hypocrite. Because if it was anybody else in front of me, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing with your money? Like, you're an idiot. And me, I'm just like, this is going to work.
Yeah. If I came to you and said, hey, I want to start a podcast of my own, would you fund me for 250 grand?
Yeah.
You'd be like,
No
okay.
chance.
Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Make money in like 10 years,
Right.
like talking about sauce or something
Right,
like that?
right,
No.
right.
But when you see it from your own eyes, you're like, okay, I can do this. I can push forward.
Yeah.
And you just have to take that risk. Like, personally, I don't mind taking those risks, but a lot of people, funding that would be something I would probably never do. But
So you guys actively work on this every day, something in the company, or what?
So we
this is kind of
were-
coasting now.
So we were kind of part-time for the longest time, just kind of like dealing with it hands off. And then, because both of my business partners, Mike and Will, they had full-time jobs making like really, really good money.
Yep.
It was hard to kind of break away for the, uncertainty of whatever.
Right.
In 2020, Will decided to leave his job. And basically, so it's the funniest thing, TikTok made me buy it. TikTok made me buy it, like one of the originals.
Really?
So like we are one of the original TikTok
Come on.
made me buy it. And the minute we hit that algorithm, that
Boom.
stream, Shark Tank looked like, if you looked at a chart, you'd be like, what's this tiny little blip over
Come
here?
on.
Really?
Not even a close comparison.
Wow.
I mean, in all the power to social media and basically the power to basically anyone to kind of put something
See
out
it,
there
yeah.
on some level. But if you kind of work the angles right, and we didn't even know at first, we just kind of someone posted it, and then we just started sending it out to more and more people. But that TikTok made me buy it was like, it's like a whole nother level.
Wow.
Like, crazy.
And have sales stay the same, or they keep?
Yeah, it's been pretty steady. What happened now? So
because this is something that somebody's going to lose this very easily. Like do something, break it. Their kid's going to yank it.
How much is this?
$10.
So it's $10 for two.
Oh,
like $11 for
okay.
two, something like
Okay.
that on Amazon right now. So
good.
you get two for whatever. Those are like the retail packs. So those would be, anywhere from $4.99
This
to
is nice.
$7.99
I like this
depending.
packaging. I like the fingers coming
Yeah,
inside.
we had fun with it.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is like, you just never know with like the social media channels. But if you can figure out the algorithms and how to kind of get your thing out there, it works great. The biggest sale driver for us isn't necessarily losing it; it's gifting. So like Christmas time, for instance, this year we were the number 3 best-selling product in kitchen and dining on Amazon. So Yeti tumbler and Stanley tumbler were the only 2 products that were ahead of us.
Holy cow!
That's awesome.
And the only reason we didn't get to number 1, my personal belief, is because inventory limited at Amazon. Basically, like you get X amount.
Yep.
So we kept sending in, but it was in what's called FC transfer. So like
Yeah, we have
fulfillment
we sell on
center
Amazon.
Yeah, so fulfillment center transfers killed us because at some point,
It's in limbo.
yeah, like the 18th or 19th, it started showing like may arrive after Christmas, and that's like the death nail.
Yeah.
So like 1 hour we check it said, arrives before Christmas. 1 hour we check it
After.
May, and then we just started it wasn't a big dive, but we started to
But
see
you
a
still
dive.
have, yeah.
But that.
So is
that
December
amount
your
of
biggest
crazy-
sales month?
Oh yeah, by far. It's such
a great stocking
huge,
stuffer.
It's exactly stocking stuffer, white elephant gifts.
What's white elephant gift?
Like
a gift
if we all
exchange.
did a gift exchange.
Oh yeah, this is great for that.
So like all those things we do. It's absolutely wild.
Are you guys in stores?
Yeah, we're in probably a couple thousand stores like AutoZone, Advanced Auto, Joanne Fabrics, like
awesome.
a bunch of random stores. Retail's been, I would say, like more of an uphill battle for us, but we haven't really focused
So
on
internet's
it.
way better for you, obviously.
Yeah, I think with the product itself, like if you saw that packaging, you'd be interested.
Yeah.
But to kind of get the full user experience, like a lot of people don't believe that it actually works the way it should work, right?
What
They're
do
like,
you
it's
mean
going to
works?
fall, the sauce is going to fall out.
I mean, I
Like
keep
it's gonna
going
spill.
like this. I just push it. That thing is not moving.
Yeah.
Okay, are we going to Chick-fil-A after this to do
Yeah,
this?
try it out.
Yeah,
But I'm
let's
telling you,
take
like
your car.
we did rally testing. We literally took cars off
Yeah,
road.
you said you really rigorously tested it.
Wait till our videos come out on YouTube pretty soon. So like, not on YouTube, sorry, Instagram and stuff like that. So we went to Vegas in November, and we did. We went off-roading in Ford Raptors, like up these mountains, and we just stuck Saucemotos in there and we're just eating the whole time. We have video of all of it. Then we took out some side-by-sides, some like the ATVs, the Polaris Razors.
Yeah.
We went off-roading in the desert, like ripping the whole thing. We put Saucemotos in
A
the
lot of dirt in there, though.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't really eating from that because it was like dust everywhere, but we just wanted to show that it held.
Yeah.
And then the coolest thing we did, we went. There's this experience where you fly these stunt planes. Like they let you fly them up in the air. They take off for you. Then you get to control the wheel and you dogfight like your friends. Dogfight as in plane dogfighting. I don't want to get anybody So you literally play laser tag in these planes, and then they do all the stunts for you, like the barrel rolls and the dives. I didn't hold up so well, but Mike and Will held up pretty well.
I would be puking everywhere.
I might have done a little of that, but Mike and Will did really well. But we put Saucemotos in the vent as this plane was doing barrel rolls and stuff, and just going crazy, doing all these crazy stunts, like 8 Gs. We experienced 8 Gs.
8 Gs.
8 Gs.
This is incredible.
And it was wild. And the Saucemoto was just sitting in the vent. So we got all these cool videos, but it was like hundreds of hours of video that we got to edit down to snippets that we got to put out eventually. But so people just don't believe. And that's why I think retail is a struggle for us. Like they see it and they're like, that won't actually work. And where you can kind of have a little bit more interaction
video on there.
online, you can describe it a little further. You can go into detail a little more. And that's why I think Amazon and just the internet in general has sprouted so many cool and unique products. Because if you saw some of the stuff in retail, you'd walk right by it. You'd be like, that's not going to work. That's silly.
There's a lot of things that
whatever.
I buy because I watch the 20 to 60-second video on Amazon to see what the product does.
Yep.
So somebody does it full time. Will does it full time now?
Will does it full time. Mike's full time now, and now we're basically in the so 2020 was crazy with TikTok. Like we were busy before, then it took it to a whole nother level. And growing a consumer products company, I don't know if you guys have ever been in that space, it's extremely expensive. So basically for all of 2020, I mean, we were like pinching pennies, counting how we're going to get, because we knew Christmas was going to be huge, like, crazy huge. So we had to figure out how to scrape together enough money for the inventory for Christmas. And mind you have to order like 5-6 months in advance because shipping, logistics, all the, and 2020 was just crazy anyways. So basically all of 2020, we just scraped and tried to figure out, hey, how are we going to get this? So for every product you sell, if you're growing at a high clip, and that's why sometimes high growth businesses, people don't have, or, people aren't making as much as you think they are because they're putting all their money back in, right? Like you're putting everything back into this. So we just put the money back in, and for every product you're selling, maybe you have to buy 2, maybe you have to buy 3, maybe you have to buy 10, depending on how fast you're growing. And we knew that running out of inventory was not an option because like with that algorithm and the links and everything, you don't want it to die out. And plus word of mouth, people are sending people like, go find this thing on Amazon. If you're not the guy that has it on Amazon or on your website and it's sold out, you're not going to get the sale. Right. We have patents, but patents, we have like several lawsuits that are going right now with a bunch of like Five Below has a knockoff.
Really?
We can't talk about it much, but like Amazon has all the Chinese random people that just knock off dead knockoffs. But we knew that we had to maintain that. So we scraped for 2020 and we couldn't develop anything new. We had plans to develop anything new. And if we had steady sales, we would have developed new products. But with growth sales, you're like, nope, focus, laser. So we grew and grew. And then 21 was kind of even crazier. Like as we grew throughout, 22 became even crazier. And now finally, like we feel like we're steadied out. Like most of 22 was a little steadier. Christmas was crazier than ever. But we feel like we're more steady and we can kind of finally sit down and develop, the next slew of
So you have new product ideas?
Yeah. So we have a bunch of stuff coming out really soon. And I don't know when this will air, but, we'll definitely give you an update on some of the fun stuff that we're
next few weeks,
on.
I imagine.
Yeah. So some of the stuff will be close, but it's not going to be.
Let's go back to Shark Tank. So you did a deal with Kevin O'Leary, but then afterwards, the deal did not consummate.
Yeah. So the deal you see on the show it's a real deal.
Very high level.
It's kind of like a boardroom deal. Like, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm going to pitch you, you're really interested, and then the term sheet, and then, the diligence, then the et cetera, et cetera. Yep. And truth be told, like we wanted to work with Kevin. We love Kevin. Kevin's awesome. I mean, his team is amazing. Everyone that works with him is amazing. We just, at the end of the day, like we didn't see eye to eye on some of the terms. Like between,
how soon after
they try to change the deal?
No. The deal stayed.
Deal's deal.
It's just there's certain specifics. So
but a deal is a monetary deal is a monetary deal, and then a term sheet and actual deal points are very different than whatever. So and again, we can't go into too much detail. But
did you bring the contract so I could see it?
Yeah, I did.
So you guys. So how soon after the show ends that you walk off the stage, do you hear from Kevin's people?
So immediately, first, like someone from the team,
like the next day,
someone from the team meets you at your trailer.
Oh,
to start, not to hammer out deal points, but they just want to introduce themselves. They want to kind of tell you who you're going to be talking to, how to communicate, etc. And then from there, things move along as there's a period before filming, between filming and airing that you're just kind of like in limbo. You're talking to people, but you're not really, pushing. And then it gets closer to airing time, and then the deal kind of starts to kind of come together, right? Or not come together. And again, nothing contentious. It was awesome working with them.
Yeah.
It's just
how often did you speak to Kevin O'Leary afterwards himself?
Not much. It's more you're working with their team at that point, and
which is understandable.
I don't expect him to be on a call every day with us. I mean, if it was a multi-billion-dollar product, multi-crazy over the top, like this could revolutionize the world, I would expect.
Well, everybody on Shark Tank thinks they're revolutionizing the world. I love it when people say, "Let's go change the world with my new Saucemoto." You guys didn't say this, and I'm like, "Your product's not going to change the world." I'm sorry.
It's funny at the end when
internet,
he said, "Let's go make
hundreds of dollars."
I love that. We were dying
Let's go make hundreds of dollars.
And that's the thing. We have fun with our product. We have fun with the videos. We have fun with all the all the marketing around it. And we're not sitting here saying, "Hey, we're curing cancer," even though there are some comments that are hilarious on social media, like, this is what we're doing instead of trying to cure cancer. I'm like, yeah.
This is what I'm doing. Yes.
Us three
So we're not
decided
curing
that
cancer.
we're going to put our efforts into it.
We thought, okay, cure cancer or Saucemoto.
And we went with
we're going to do
Saucemoto.
Saucemoto.
And that's I think people
course.
have this black and white image of the world. Like,
People-
either you're working on this incredible over the top thing, or you're working on nothing at all.
Yeah.
It's not like that. Like, there's so much in between that you can
course.
work on. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to do something, you don't have to revolutionise the world.
Well, and that's the
Change the
thing.
world.
So this is the thing that I get very annoyed with.
Change eating in cars, though.
I remember when I was in high school, college, I had a business idea. And I remember saying it to somebody, and they're like, they said something, and but the way they said it was like, I remember looking at them saying, well, if I want to start a plumbing business, that's not changing the world. I'm like, and I get frustrated when people think that every business has got to be this revolutionary, we're changing everything. It's like, no, first off, car, airplane, internet, computer. Those change the world. We can talk about 4 things that change the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Electricity.
And in our time, like with our age bracket, we had the Zuckerberg effect.
Yeah.
We watched somebody who was, for me, it was like literally directly our age. And then we had LeBron as well, who was, I don't know how old you are.
I'm 41.
Okay, so you're kind of similar. Like
He's
30,
33.
34.
34,
so
whatever.
LeBron graduated high school the time I did. Zuckerberg was basically in college and kind of doing Facebook around the So you're sitting there comparing yourself to like these two people, in essence, right, that are growing these massive, over-the-top, crazy evaluation.
It's a little misleading.
Whatever, right? Like getting paid millions and millions to play basketball, or getting invested in and having $1 billion company. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I want to start a business, but I can't think of anything that's, the next Facebook. You don't have to think of the next Facebook.
Right.
The next Facebook is great. If you can come up with that and you can actually implement it and make it work,
Good for you.
good for you. Awesome. But most people get bogged down.
We also
in
don't
that.
see how many Facebooks didn't even make it, guys. It's called selection bias.
Yeah.
We sit there and only see the LeBrons and the
success.
And look,
Zuckerbergs.
and the next closest one to Facebook was probably MySpace, and you see how far away that was from Facebook.
But that was before Facebook.
It was, but it still competed with them.
Yeah, of course.
Didn't last
And
long.
I think the internet is drawing very clear black and white lines, but outside of some of the crazy big evaluation internet stuff, there's still plenty of gray area. Like if you play basketball in high school and then you went to college and played ball and you were good, but maybe not NBA draft good, if that's your passion, you can still work in the basketball realm. You can coach, you can start academies, you can do a million things that will
Provide a living.
in that space, right? But if you're looking at it and saying, well, I can't make $10 million a year doing that, then
So it's funny.
yeah.
You literally said 10 million a year. Somebody I know had a car detailing business. I kept promoting them. Go do it. They were in high school. And I said, keep doing this. Like the problem is I don't see myself making 10 million a year from the car detailing business. They go, 1, I'm sure there's a way, but 2, it doesn't matter. It's about getting the experience and doing something now. Look at Bill Gates. He had trafo data. It was his way of, he put a way of like putting strips in the road that counted traffic. And that was his first business because he sat there and said, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg did other things before Facebook. It's about getting the experience to be able to go out there and do the things that eventually get you that when you're ready to have. And by the way, if you never get the great idea, who cares? You don't need to make 10 million a year.
boring businesses make
Tons of money.
tons of money.
Not trying to be a jerk. This is not exactly super exciting.
No, I mean, it's exciting for us because it was fun to develop
Yes.
a product and we like developing products. But other people, if you got bogged down in this, if you actually spent the day-to-day developing a product, it is sitting in front of a screen.
Yeah.
CAD,
CADing
doing
it around,
CAD
right.
and SolidWorks, and writing marketing material that you don't know if it's going to work or not, high stress. For us, that was a blast, right? Other people might find it super boring. And there's more exciting businesses, but boring businesses make money. And going back to what you said with the detailing, mentality is everything.
Yes.
So if that's your passion and you want to do it, cool, do it. There is ways to make $10 million. There's I can't remember what the company's called.
Well, find
but
out-
they're out of New York, and they
Well, it could lead to car washes. That's
Ammo?
my point.
I think it's Ammo, car detailing.
No.
So they started off as like a really high-end detail shop. They did amazing details, right? But then they started, the vision's what changed, like kind of got them to the next level because they were like, well, we're posting these videos, we're getting millions of views on how to do this and how to do that, how to wet sand, how to, buff out a car, how to whatever, right? Why don't we start promoting something? So they started creating their own, products like for the detailing space.
Yeah.
And is there anything that much different about their products? They probably just went to a white label company and said, hey, we use this product in this way. Can you label it with our stuff so we can, and that they're making a killing. Now, there's a lot of people, if you can see the next steps and you kind of, and that's where, I don't know if you guys ever read The Secret or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't read it, but I know
you're aware. I never read it. I watched like the thing on whatever
Netflix or whatever.
You know, and I always thought to myself, like, this is silly until I started to understand. And I'm not one of those like,
you have to apologize,
right? I'm apologizing.
I understand.
What I'm saying though is if your vision and you're seeing yourself in that scenario, right? And you're understanding that this is where I want to be, your mind starts connecting, and it's not, it's going to, magically get the keys to a Ferrari tomorrow because I see myself in a Ferrari. No, you'll just start connecting the dots because you think and you know in your mind, hey, I can be in that $10 million house. I can have that Ferrari. I can whatever. If you think you can, if you understand that it's possible, you start connecting the dots as to how, and you start educating yourself better on how to do it. If you don't see it, like your detailer friend who, said, hey, I don't see this being a $10 million company or a $10 million business. Of course, you're never going to get to $10 million because you're never going to look out for ways to get to $10 million a year.
So like, look at our channel. When I used to say to Seth, and Tim always believed it, I'd say, I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be something. Then we started doing stock analysis. It started to grow. And I pulled up an Excel sheet. I had a data feed. And on the Excel sheet, I would do these numbers, all that stuff. And the most common comment from people was, how do I get that Excel sheet? And I'm like, well, I can't give it to you. It's a data feed. And then all of a sudden I looked at Tim one day. I'm like, let's just make the software. Yeah. And now our software is insane. Yep. We have thousands of people. And the whole point I'm trying to make to everybody is, I just didn't close I just sat there and said, there'll be something because I opened my mind to the whole thing. And it's also funny, like, we talk about these things and my financial goals are different than most people, but I will say, one area which I do have to change my mentality on is my performance on, like, sometimes I believe that I can't beat Gary in his returns. I can't beat Warren Buffett. Well, why not? There have been a lot of people who've beaten Buffett on 30-year period of time, not 55 years, but I'm like, okay, well, it's just funny. The other day, I literally, you know who said it to me? Darnell.
Oh, really?
We were talking one day and I'm like, well, Gary's a better investor than me. And he literally goes, don't say that. And we were on a FaceTime. I go, why? He goes, because you're limiting yourself. And this is my buddy, and the one, like, and I'm like sitting there and I have gobs more money than this guy. He literally said that. I'm like, fuck. But you know what? They're now playing in the NFL. He just goes, Paul, when I was 7, I just knew I was going to play in the NFL. Yeah. Now, he also grew into 6'6", but at age 7, I'm sure he didn't think he was going to be. It's still, I don't care if you're 6'6", it's still really effing hard to play in the NFL.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
And he played 4 years.
Guys that are in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm looking at it going like, damn, he's right. And I was just like, that really was an eye-opener for me. And the whole point about all this is, guys, it does take a long time. I used to always say I used to brainwash myself. It takes a long time to change that mentality. But the point is, now I avoid people with negative mentality.
Yeah, and like I said, negative mentality is negative to everybody around it.
That's
and the naysayers, I don't mind, again, like they call me Debbie Downer because I want to point out all the negative stuff, not so you'll feel like you shouldn't do it or can't do it, so you're aware.
That's not a negative mentality, though.
But that's the thing. A lot of people mix the two up, right? A realist and somebody who's negative or down.
I will disagree a little bit on that. Like, within our company, there are a couple people I know, don't go talk to them about this idea you have because they're just going to shit on it.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between that and, like, for a guy like me, I like to think about what are the potentials first. Let's get excited about this. And then from there, okay, because I just believe every hurdle can be overcome.
Yeah. But I think that and that's the thing. You do that. You say, what is the potential? Then let's go and look at the hurdles. He just talks to people that say, look at the potential.
Now, that's
Nobody
the thing.
looks at the hurdles. Somebody has to help point out the hurdles.
That's the problem. Yeah. Most people don't look at the hurdles.
Mentality.
Yeah, you're right. And I get that.
Most people just see this magical world of like money and business.
That's why I love, like, I know I can make, when people, how many times on the Shark Tank they say, I'm going to be the hardest working person you have.
Every single episode.
Yeah.
I'm like,
maybe yours.
No, but I mean, realistically, like knowing the hurdles, it might even make your business, I mean, it will. Yeah. It might, not might. It will make your business stronger.
Just be aware of them.
Help you to see some of the pitfalls that you might fall into.
Exactly.
And that's where I think the strength is. But always keep the positive attitude. Like it shouldn't be like, I can't do it because he pointed out these things. It should be,
I'm aware of that now.
Let me figure out how to overcome those. And then I'll come back. Maybe he has more things to add. But one way or another, it's all about.
Well, a lot of it's also tone too. Like I'm not in the meetings with you. Are you going like, ooh, or are you going like, hey? Because
no, I always tell them, I'm like, listen, I like your idea. I love what you're trying to do. I'm not trying to be negative, but here's what I think.
Oh, I'll just look at somebody and be like, your idea sucks.
But that's the thing. Like, I don't want to shit on anybody, and I don't want to kill anyone's dreams. I just want to make sure they understand from the get-go. And it might be the greatest idea. I want to come up with the negatives, so they don't go, "Oh, you told me this was the greatest idea. I lost my shirt because of this." Yeah. I mean, there's always negatives, no matter what. I don't care what business you're in. The NBA, you're in the NFL. People think that's a dream job. You're constantly scrutinized. You're traveling all the time. You make good money, but okay, how long does it last? Really, like if you're not LeBron James, 20 years, right? There's a lot of pitfalls to kind of having that lifestyle, and then having it taken away if you're making $5 million a year. And then next year you can't get a contract, but you've already spent, $3 million of the $5 million on just stupid stuff or whatever it is. I mean, there's a lot of negatives to certain aspects of life that people don't look at.
No, of course.
And I'm not saying you should focus on them. No, never focus on them.
Just be aware.
But just be aware of them so you understand how to avoid them, how to avoid the little pitfalls. But keeping that positive attitude is way more important.
And that's the thing. It's like, that's always the healthy balance. It's so I remember once hearing a quote, because I remember and it was a brilliant quote, because I'm not a detail oriented person. For some reason, when it comes to numbers, I can get, but even then, like yesterday we had our why'd you point at me like that?
I'm the same exact way.
So like yesterday we had our year-end meeting. So I stepped down as CEO 3 or 4 years ago randomly. My brother took over, but now it's like every month I get a recap. But yesterday was our year-end meeting. So I asked the question, all right, what was top line for this business? What was bottom line? And all of a sudden my partner started going, well, we had these expenses. I go, stop. Top line, bottom line. And the reason being, and somebody in that meeting would have been like, what a dick. And I'm like, listen, that's the hardest part for me when people are pitching me. I'll ask questions and they'll say to me, no, let me get to that. I'm like, no, I need to ask you the questions that make sense to me for my process. I'm not shitting on your process, but I have a process that works for me. You have a process that works for you. Unfortunately, you're asking me for money. And when I do this recap meeting, it's like, I have to understand things a certain way. And that's another thing we talk about is like, be the best version of yourself. Because it's funny, the quote I remember was, there are successful people who are detail oriented and there are unsuccessful people who are detail oriented. The difference is the people who are unsuccessful are detail oriented on the wrong things. Like, so that's the big part of it where it's like, I think what you're talking about with the negatives is more like, hey, I'm focusing on the things that I know could, like, I don't know, for this, if you told me this right now, my first question is, what's your MOQ? Like, I'm not asking you that question. I'm like, if you were pitching me, I'd be like, okay, how many units? Like, the first question every single pitch, if I were a Shark Tank, the very first question I'd ask is, how much does it cost you? How much do you sell it for? That's all I want to know to start. That's it. Like literally, because if you tell me, hey, I sell these for $5, each cost me $4.50, I'm out. Like literally, or I'd say to them, okay, how do you get this down to $1? They say we can't. I'm out. I mean, it'd be that quick.
So you fill out the guy that colored the outside of the coloring book, like the outer perimeter, and then filled in the other stuff later,
that's what I do. I do this funnel. I start with the top funnel. I start weeding out, and it works for me. Other people want to know like
what's it made of, where what's your primary market, what's whatever. You want to see, okay, how much can I make off of this, and then we'll narrow down to who am I selling it to, how am I selling it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So it's like investing. If somebody shows me a company that's selling for 300 times free cash flow and it's a stable company, I don't need to look any further. I'm out. Like, some people might criticize saying, well, you don't know. No, I know enough. Like the growth it needs to have to justify that is so insane it never happened. Maybe that's your style. Maybe it's not. No. I have no idea.
No, I mean, I get it completely. Like I said, I think everyone should kind of follow their own, their own whatever works for them. So if you want to invest in, blue chip companies and that's your thing, like I want to have these name brand things. Maybe they don't grow as much. Maybe they whatever, take flyers on this or whatever. Fine. That's your comfort zone. That's what you want to do. If you want to, build something from scratch that has the potential to fall completely apart and you're going to lose every dollar you put into it, but you have the potential to maybe make X more, everyone's got their little area that they want to follow. But when you said, the reason I pointed at you is because I'm the same way. Detail stuff.
Not your thing.
I'm like, okay, I'll listen to it.
Somebody can figure it out.
But somebody will figure it out. Numbers. If you ask me like, hey, what was your first order? How many did you do? Like, what were your sales this month? I can almost break it down like for all my businesses, on some level, I'll remember like weird numbers.
Yeah, of course.
But when it comes to like, hey, who's that person over there? Like names and faces. I'm horrible with names and faces. So I don't know, random stuff like that. It's just details.
I think for me, it's very triggering because, no, it really is because Mo, you know, I don't mean it to be like, you know, woe is me, but I look at it saying, this is a real problem with people who want to be, I love when Mark Cuban calls it entrepreneurship because 90% of people who tell me they want to start a business are entrepreneurs. Yeah. Like you don't want the grind. You know, they sit there and say like,
not the glory.
So we have a Fit Active Sports. It sells on Amazon. We had the #1 weightlifting glove on Amazon for 2 years. And then what happened to us? We ran into inventory issues. It effed up the whole algorithm. We fell. Yeah. Our sales went from $2.5 million a year down to $1.1 million a year. And now we're building it back up. Yeah. But the thing that, and by the way, I love my partner. He got me all my money back and 50%. And every single month is cash flow positive, even the drop. But I kept saying him along the way, and he admits it. I go, you're living and dying by one product. Yeah. You're living and dying by one product. Yep. You're living, if something fucks up here, we're going to be down. And sure enough, boom, it happened. By the way, he's a great partner. And he even says, he's like, man, that was right. But I look at it saying like, this isn't my first rodeo. Like you live and die by one product. You're done if that product goes away. Like that's it. This is a novelty item. Yeah. But you guys are now building things around it.
And so one of our little things that we're doing with the Saucemoto, so it's our company's actually Milkman Design.
Yeah,
so
I was going to ask you where that's from.
That's the company. You know, we just, that was whatever. Like it comes from our last names, like Mujayas, Lahood, Khoury. Oh. And then we just added the I and we're like milk. Milk was kind of taken. So we were like, we come up with really illegitimate ideas. We're like, we father illegitimate ideas. We're the milkman. You know?
Okay, that works. That's
cute. Inside kind of like random joke, but it's not the primary. So the primary brand is like Saucemoto. Yeah. And when we first launched, we were actually dip clip. So like there's a lot of videos online that are just dip clip. But once we kind of talked to the trademark people, we were like, well, dip clip is going to be really difficult to trademark on its own. You have to come up with something. So Saucemoto came about. So now Saucemoto is kind of like its brand, right? So our strategy on some level moving forward is we have this great product. It gets looked up a lot. We get a lot of traffic. We get whatever. Let's use Saucemoto. So like this, we consider this Saucemoto. The product is a Saucemoto, but it's also a dip clip. But what we're going to do is kind of transition Saucemoto into kind of slightly a brand, if that makes sense. So like there's going to be other Saucemoto products that come out. So what we're doing is kind of turning Saucemoto into more of a brand name than an actual product name. And basically utilizing that to create a halo effect. So like this is a really innovative product, like in our opinions. You know, it was when it came out and recently, whatever, it's really different and innovative and unique. And we call it like a halo product. So like car companies do this all the time. They'll come out with a halo car, like the Lexus LFA, for instance, right? Lexus LFA cost them crazy amount of money to develop. They lost money on them. But when you think of Lexus now, you don't think always boring. You think, oh, well, they did make that LFA that was really, really cool. And now they're like $1 million cars. So Saucemoto will be like the halo. And then we'll come out with other products under that brand name. Yep. And, you know, now, since we were on Shark Tank and TikTok and kind of went viral in all these places, we do get a lot of traffic for that. So now you can take, so like, for instance, with your glove guy, there's other facets in the industry, and that's why we have
more products coming out now.
Exactly. So now you develop products that kind of go along with this under that same brand name. People trust it because they've bought it before on some. I mean, you're not Nike, you're not whatever, but you're way up there.
We've sold 200,000 of those gloves. Yeah. You know, we watch a random video once. Somebody sent us a video like, hey, look, Dwayne Wade's working out on Instagram and he's wearing our gloves. Yeah. And it's like, so that's the thing. Like, yes, you're right. We can do that. But no, there's no but to it. I just like the fact that it's like, okay, like I really thought you were going to tell me, Paul, we just have this on the side and we get we make money every year and we all split it and that's it. I'm glad you're like, no, we're building a company out of this now.
No, and we have other products and other.
Are they innovative products? So are they actually like?
Here's what I think, and this is kind of hard to explain to people who don't understand. Amazon is, I would say, unlike regular world retail shopping, right? I would say it's like 50% branding, 50% just product, okay? And algorithm, advertising, etc. So people on Amazon, if you look up like vacuum cleaner or you look up, I don't know, blender, right? Whatever it is. look up Blender. There's like a million knockoff brands of whatever, just ABCD Corporation.
From China.
All of
you know,
them.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
But there is still room to kind of build brands on Amazon.
Amazon wants you to do that.
Primary. Yeah, they want you to do that, but it's not the primary for Amazon. So a lot of guys that start these FBA businesses, they're like, well, I'll just get all these products and, you know, put them on there and I'll sell on other people's listings and all this kind of stuff. So there is a large portion of people that do that. And then there's people that want to build like a brand. It's not as important on Amazon as it is in, you know, retail. Like Walmart wants to know that this is a well-known brand on some level, or Target or whatever. So there's an opportunity for people that are willing to take the time to build a brand and invest in building a brand to kind of go the extra mile and target customers and go after customers that trust, you know, a brand name, a company. Like your glove is a great example.
Well, when
if
we
you trust this, hey, maybe you want.
Well, when we launch more products now,
socks,
it's easier for us to launch more products now because we have that brand. Like you have the brand store, you know what I mean? All these things. So now when we find ourselves, like when we first launched the glove, it was like, hurrah, we got one a day. Yeah. Then it was, we got two a day. Then it was three. Then all of a sudden you get yourself to 250, 300 a day. Yep. And now when we launch a product, a bad start is 5 a day. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, this is, or it depends on the cost.
Yeah, if it's a really expensive product.
By the way, that's what we're trying to focus on, and more expensive products. So
yeah, and I think there is a level, like we're right at the base level of Amazon, because like most of our profits get soaked up by shipping
costs.
Fees, you know, like we're still
do you spend money on advertising? Do you spend money on advertising for Amazon, or you don't need to because you're brand?
We do. So we do like more targeted advertising. So like it's, I don't know how to describe it. We have this whole,
because our ad costs are big because we don't have that brand awareness like you have.
So like every time a Shark Tank airs, you know, we get a big kick. But
like how big of a jump will it go?
It's usually depending on the day. Like during Christmas, it's barely a blip. You know, it doesn't really do anything
because it's Christmas already.
Because it's already absolutely like balls to the wall crazy. You're not going to do much more. During like the summer or some random time of year, it could be, you know, 25 to 50% over a regular day. I mean, it's still not. Great. It's the first time we aired, it was like thousands of percent.
How often does your episode air?
So
is there an average?
It's filtering out. It's not filtering out, but it's slowly getting like maybe once every other month now. Okay. But it used to be once a month, twice a month.
Do you know when it's going to air?
No.
Okay.
We have no idea.
You just see a big jump and you go, must have aired.
CNBC is now like, you know, we don't see much of that.
I watch it on Hulu, by the way.
We kind of check every once in a while, like to see if there's something coming up where, hey, we can check if it's airing, if we remember. But it's hard to kind of constantly check.
Right.
And it's just not as important. It's still important to our business.
Yeah,
it's still part of our story, but it's not as important to our business. It's like I don't know, like for instance, in real estate, you know, when you first start out, you're probably checking, you know, Zillow or Realtor every single day, trying to find that one single family home. And then once you kind of establish deal flow over time, you're like, okay, now the deals are kind of coming to me.
It's like FedEx with sports. It's like our software here.
Yeah.
The software, I used to literally look every single hour. Yeah. The gloves every single hour. Now I literally look at it once a month and I go, okay, what are our sales? Because I'm just used to it. Yeah. Leasing, when we first started renting apartments, it was like, every single day, send me this. Then it became every week. Now it's just like, okay, let me see, because I know it's stable.
Yeah,
it's like,
just like a top line, and you're like, okay, top line, bottom line, like you said. And you're like, okay, we're comfortable here as long as there's nothing weird in the middle. We're good.
By the way, that's what works for me.
Yeah, everybody's different.
I think Warren Buffett gets a call every night on how many Geico sales they get.
Really?
Yeah, because that Geico is really important to him. So he literally gets a phone call. This is what I read years ago, that he gets a phone call every night saying, this is the number of policies we wrote today. I think it's a net number. Like we gained X number of policies. And like, okay. Because that really matters to him, because he knows insurance is driving his other things.
Yeah. I mean, it's important, I think, you know.
For him.
Some people want to know every detail of every sale of every, you know.
Then to me, I tell people like that, like, you're not a business person. Like, to me, you gotta pull away at some point and focus on the more important. If you're going to sell a sellable product, like, you've got to have it be where it's something that if all three of you died tomorrow, does this thing keep going?
Yeah. And the thing is, like, have you ever read the E-Myth Revisited?
I never read it, but I know what it is.
Super simple book. If anyone's out there that wants like the best starter book, you know, it's not
isn't that good, huh?
In my opinion, it's one of the best. It's like the book I recommend most to people.
Excellent.
It's just, you're going to read it and you're going to be like, this is super simplistic, because you've been in this world. You've been in this world forever, right? But that book is just, it kind of breaks through and it says, hey, they go through that example like a pie baker, right? And this lady's like baking pies every single day and she can't keep up. And, she feels like her whole life is this pie business. And, it's like a guy consulting her. And he's like, well, how are you going to stop this? Like, how are you going to fix it? And it just teaches you, hey, you have to let go of certain aspects. Like, start with the bottom. Find someone to mop the floors, right?
Yep.
Find someone to, make the pie crusts the way that you make them. Write out your SOPs, and then find someone to make them. Then simplify your life over time, and now you can focus on the big picture. Like for her, it might have been, I think it was like creating new pies or new recipes. She never had time to do that. She just kept selling the same thing over and over again because she was so busy doing that thing that she wasn't looking at how do I grow the business. She was just trying to.
So Rahman, Effective Sports. I used to say, Rahman, what's going to drive our business the most? Because new products. I go, that's what you need to be focusing on. Then. It's guys, the whole point I'm trying to make here is it's no different between business people. It's like, this is the way it is. I literally would tell Rahman, what's going to drive our business? Well, more products. Great. That is your focus. Everything else needs to be outsourced to everybody else.
Right.
Yep.
And if you're not doing that, that's on you.
So we usually have a threshold. And like when we were growing, we set a threshold. We're like, okay, $25 an hour. Let's start there. If you can outsource for $25 an hour.
Or less,
if you can get it done for $25 an hour or less, and it's going to be 80% of what you want it to be, because you're never going to get 100. People that want 100, they're going to get to a certain level, and that's where they're going to be, right? 100 is...
You're not giving 100.
Perfection is the enemy of greatness or something. What's that quote? Something
There's
like that.
a ton of quotes about that. I'm a big believer in that. When people want to be perfectionists, I go, I'm out.
So like if you're at 80 and you can get done for less than $25, like our old threshold. So $25 an hour, farm it out. If it's going to cost more than 25 for now,
let's
keep doing it. Because this is where we are cash flow wise, right? Then you just, as you grow, you start increasing that number. Like, hey, if it can be farmed out for 50, 100, 200, and eventually if you're really, really successful, you're like, hey, if I can farm that, I mean, as long as it's not like menial tasks, obviously you want to get market, but like if you can say, hey, develop this product for me and I'll give you $1,000 an hour to do it, and it makes sense financially for you,
you should do it.
You should do it. If it makes, and that's kind of where people get lost in the mix, because they're like, well, I can do that. I don't need to pay somebody to do that.
Well, it's not about needing to pay somebody to do that.
It's that you should be paying somebody to do that.
No, it's not. It's like, listen, to me, I always tell people that's the difference between a business person and what I call a sole proprietor. Like a sole proprietor has a business to make a living. A business person is building a business to sell off as kind of like an investment. But one of my biggest beefs is when people say to me, my business wouldn't exist anymore if I wasn't around. And they're saying it in a self-edifying way, like, oh, I'm so important. I'm like, well, then you don't have a business. I'm sorry.
You have a job.
Yeah.
You've bought yourself a job. Congratulations. That's what it is.
And I've only heard one entrepreneur ever tell me, and not even an entrepreneur, say to me, Paul, I had this business to make a living, and that was it. And I was like, thank you. And they were honest about it. They're like, I had this business to make a living. I said, wonderful. You were honest about that. Everybody, she didn't think, hey, I'm doing this. But no, she's like, listen, I wanted to make $100,000 a year, and this provided me an ability to make $100,000 a year. And with all my benefits and everything, I make $150. I made out. Great.
I'm happy for those people. I'm truly ecstatic. Not everyone needs to kind of build.
And that's the problem. Right? Like you said about Zuckerberg and LeBron, we build this image of everything's got to be huge. And that's the thing I used to have too. And now I'm like, no, I just want to be content and happy, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing for me now. Like going back to Shark Tank as well, when they said, like, you look like you don't want to be here, there was a portion of me that was like, no, I don't want to be here. And a lot of that has to just be with, I don't like being front and center of attention, right? Yeah. If you told me, hey, tomorrow you can have $2 billion or $999 million, and you just stay off of all the lists, you stay off of all the random things that say, oh, billionaire over there, I'd be like, give me $999 million. I don't need the extra.
So why'd you go on the show then?
So I mean, it just made sense. It made sense for the business in general. Gotcha. And we did want a deal, but the partners wanted to do it, and we were all going to do it together. So it's like, it's not that I didn't want at all to be on. I thought it was a great experience. I loved being there. And
did they pay for you to go out there, or did you have to pay for everything?
Yeah, they pay for basic flight, hotel, room, whatever. They give you like a little per diem or something like that. But it's not, it's not like the Ritz or anything. It's nice. It's really nice. But it's
Can you upgrade?
I don't know. We never even asked that. But I know they want you to stay in the hotel kind of thing, because like there's stuff that whatever that you do.
This is great. Listen, awesome. It's been a great. So, what's your website? Milkmendesign.com.
Well, saucemoto.com.
So guys, check out saucemoto.com. Pay attention to the new products coming out in the next few months.
Yeah, so hopefully
Let us know what they are.
Yeah, we definitely will. Hopefully it'll be sooner.
Tony lives right in the same city that our office is based out of. He lived down the street from good friends of mine.
Oh yeah,
Your street is like 6 houses, and two good friends of mine. So I'm gonna send them both this video when it comes out. It was just a random thing where she was telling me. They both went to high school with both of them. She was telling me one day, this young guy lives next to us, and then all of a sudden I made a connection later. I'm like, wait a second, this is the guy. And so she speaks very highly of you. She thinks you're such a nice guy.
No, they're really nice,
ladies, he's recently single. If you, he's a good-looking man. If you want to send us your CVs and pictures. I wonder if people even know what a CV is.
Well, if they do, maybe I would actually consider.
All right, well, there you go.
That'd be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Do you know what a CV is?
Yeah. So anyhow, this was wonderful. Literally, it was this weekend. I said I got to have this guy on the show. We put on the group chat our mutual friend Matt. He's a great guy, and we only met because I want to do. Was it before? It was before Shark Tank, wasn't it?
I'm not sure, but yeah, I do remember.
No, it was 2018, so it wasn't before Shark Tank.
I think it was. If it was 2018, it was probably after we filmed Shark Tank, but we weren't allowed to say that we had been on Shark Tank.
So you weren't allowed to say we got on Shark Tank.
No, we weren't even allowed to tell our families. You can't say anything. Like, you just have to make up an excuse as to why you're going to.
Wow.
They're like, well, your significant other, if you're married or whatever, engaged.
And you were married at the time.
I was engaged at the time.
Oh, yeah, that's a quick turnaround.
And but yeah, like you can't really tell like people because number one, they don't want you to be embarrassed when or if you don't get on the show. Oh. But number two, they just they want to keep the actual stuff.
What percentage of the people get on? Like they actually air them? Do you know?
So the ones that film, I think it's a pretty high percentage. I don't think it's like 10% or something. I think it's like 80 or 90% that get filmed.
Oh, wow.
I think more of the things get cut because it's just, we can fit five people in this episode. You got to remember, like, they're doing these things all day.
Back to back.
They're in wardrobe, right? So like they're shooting for a show. So like a show has 3, 4, 5 pitches, maybe. So if they're wearing the same clothes the whole time, that's the show. If there's a celebrity judge, that's the show. So they need to get whatever amount they need to kind of have a good episode, right? Without overdoing it. But if they change clothes and it's like a whole different wardrobe, the people watching are gonna be like, wait,
whoa, what happened?
What just happened? Yeah. Everyone's in different, different whatever.
Right.
So
great. Well, thanks very much, awesome. Tony. All right, now I'm gonna try to convince Tony to sell me his car.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you.